Right, so this is the story of how a lost phone, two strangers, and a junior parkrun turned into one of the most powerful parenting moments I've ever had. So this morning I forgot where I put my phone, and we were just about to leave the house to do the junior parkrun without any time to spare. Now, it was important that I found my phone because it had the barcode on for my youngest first parkrun, and it was also needed to pay for the parking. So I got everyone searching the house, even my 3-year-old, but we couldn't find it anywhere. And I knew that we had to run anyway. So I was figuring out another way. I thought about the parking charge, £3.20, and I asked the house for the money. Where are you? I mean, at this point, maybe I should have just asked the house where my phone was, and I would have saved lots of trouble. But it came to me, the £3.50. It was sat waiting in this little heart-shaped dish in my room. It had been there for nearly a year. So I got that. We headed to the run. We should have been late because we only had 4 minutes now until it started at 9 o'clock. And there was all the traffic and parking to think about. But miraculously, we turned up and the church bells were ringing for 9 o'clock, and we even got there in time for the warm-up. So I ran to the ticket machine to pay, and the coin slots, they were blocked. As you can imagine, they don't use coins anymore. So the two men that were at the machine, we were friendly, and I did an exchange. I gave them the £3.50, they tapped me in and I got my ticket, and they even got a 30p interest on that as well. We laughed about this and I felt like I was really winning the day. I got to the start line with the boys. So we did nearly one lap of the run. We were coming to the end of it when I was hand in hand with my youngest, and we'd walked the whole thing. In fact, we were the very last people in the run, and he kept saying he was tired. His heart wasn't in it, and he wasn't in a place in the run further ahead that he wanted to be. So I'd been digging really deep for this whole lap on words of encouragement, something that would encourage him to go a bit faster. Then at the side of the track, these two young men from the ticket machine, they stood there and they'd come to find me. They weren't involved in the run. They were there for a different reason, because I had left my parking ticket in the machine. So they could have gone about their day, but instead they chose to help a stranger. And in that moment, I said to my son, you have two choices. And this is where it got interesting. I said to him, you can either give up on the run and come with me to the car, or secondly, you can carry on and run this race on your own until I get back. I know you can do it. And I saw him, he thought really hard about this, and he said to me, Mommy, I'm going to run the race. And for the first time, he found the energy. He set off on a run, almost a sprint. And he used his arms for momentum. He was focused forward. And he knew exactly how to run fast. So I turned around, I ran to the car, and when I was on the way, I just glanced back, and he was still running with pace and determination. And it was a time when he wouldn't even think that I was watching him. He was doing this completely of his own accord. So I returned moments later, and I saw him nearly at the end of this second lap, still running. He'd probably ran the whole way, and I cheered him from a distance, especially when I saw his energy drop. And a couple of times he slowed down to a walk, but only for like a pace or two. I could see in his body language that he was having words internally to himself. And then eyes were focused straight ahead and he was off again on his run. When he got to the end of his second lap and he was on his third and final lap, that was when my eldest son and his older brother turned up. He'd completed his race. He'd ran off at the start line and he'd been through the funnel, used his barcode, and he'd completed that all on his own. He's always very proud of himself. So he sensed this situation with his little brother and he said, I'm going to run with you. So my heart was obviously very full at this point. And that's exactly what he did for that third and final lap. So I watched my two boys run the last lap together with my eldest son encouraging his little brother every pace of the way. And I just hung back and whilst I did, I actually bumped into a friend. So we ran along together. I was keeping my eye on my two boys running together and they kept up that support between the two of them for the whole lap. And with my friend, I shared my story about the parking ticket, about the lost phone, everything that I've shared with you right now to this point. And then the idea came to me about how I could solve that second problem of not having the barcode on my phone. And it was simple. I could just access the barcode from my friend's phone instead. And that would solve the two problems of my morning, to make my phone unnecessary. So right, so I ran together with my friend and I shared my story of what had happened that morning with losing my phone, not being able to use my coins, these strangers, and everything that I've shared here with you today. And then the idea came to me how I could solve that second problem of the barcode. And it was so obvious and simple that I could just access the barcode on my email from my friend's phone. And that would solve my two problems of the morning. So going back to my two boys running ahead of me, being encouraged, it was getting to the final stretch. And to go through the finish line, through the funnel, you do that on your own. The parents aren't allowed in. My eldest son, he'd already ran past the finish line. So it was my youngest son's turn to make that final sprint. And we waited for him and cheered him on through the finish line. And so did a community of people from St Albans. And they were all cheered one by one through that finish line. And I know from looking at him, he will have felt so proud of himself for officially completing his first Parkrun. And so he picked up his ticket. I met him with the barcode and he secured his place for his first official junior Parkrun. And we all walked back to the car, feeling very proud, all three of us. And I spoke to the boys about how I felt and how my eldest son had decided to run an extra lap in support. Then on the journey home, something happened. It was what my eldest son said. From the silence, I said, "Mummy, do you remember?" And he went on to describe a moment from a previous park run in absolute vivid detail. And I do remember. He set a PB that day and he was so proud of himself. And so that made me think, this is a story that I would love to remember. So when I got home, I still didn't have my phone. I picked up a notebook and a pen and I wrote down my story so that it could be remembered. And that's what I've shared with you today. So maybe you've seen yourself in this story, because I know that it's in these everyday things and these everyday experiences that we can learn the biggest lessons, and that we can be the biggest guide to our children. And actually today, what made the biggest difference was not holding his hand, not feeding him with my words. It was actually that stepping completely away from him to allow him to run on his own. So I guess there may be times where we forget where we put our phone or the keys, but we have to think about and remember all of those important things that we don't forget, and hold on to those, because they're the memories that create the core childhood. And that's what I want to remember from today.